Hey everybody, so I just computed Chuck's taxes at $75,000 of taxable income, and then I looked at Part A and looked at what his tax would be if he had $115,000 of income. Okay, so I have two videos already posted that walk through that. It's on the whiteboard behind me, but now I'm going to do it in Excel. And what I'm going to do is show you a way to go about it in Excel that's a little bit, hopefully maybe a little easier than the more complicated schedule that I showed you in class. This is hopefully an approach you can kind of use to build from. So the first thing I want to do is I want to compute Chuck's tax using the base case amount of income. Now, I'm going to call the base case amount of income $75,000, okay? So I'm going to label that just so that I'm very clear. And what I want to do is I want to use the calculation that we did earlier with respect to using the tax schedule, okay? So I know that if he has $75,000, then he's going to be in the third row here, okay? The third part of this tax bracket. So he's going to have $4,617.50 plus 50 cents. I'm sorry, plus 22% of the excess over 40,125. Okay. Well, I know he's making $75,000 of income minus 40,125. And then I want to multiply that times 22%. Okay, now I'm going to make this a dollar sign. I'm going to format this to be dollars just so that it's nice and clean. I've got the little comma in there and I can more easily read it. So all I did there was mimic what I did with the calculator earlier on the whiteboard. Now let me see if I can do the same with scenario A, which is $115,000 of income. I'm going to go through and now, again, I have to go back to the schedule. So now I'm going to be in the fourth row, in between 85,525 and 163,300. So I have to come into this fourth row here and use this formula. So let me do that right now. I'm going to do equals 14,605 plus 24% of the excess over 85,525. So I'm going to do 115 minus 85,525 times 0.24. If you notice, I get the tax. Okay, so that's my tax on the base case and on scenario A. Now, I know that the marginal rate, the formula for the marginal rate is change in tax divided by change in taxable income. So I'm going to keep this little formula. It's right behind me here in the little call-out window. So taxable income, $75,000, $115,000. Okay, now I've got the components to compute the marginal tax rate, so let me go ahead and do that. The first thing I need to do is compute the change. So I'm going to just label a change, this third column here. Now notice how scenario A is now cut off. That's a little annoying for me. I want to fix that. There's two things I can do. The first thing I'm going to do is come up to the top in between rows D and E, and I'm going to make it wider, okay? You can do that. You can make the columns wider or narrower. The other thing I can do is I can come up to here and I can come into the text. There's a text wrapping option. I want to make note of something, by the way. I should have mentioned this up front. I'm in Google Sheets right now, but this is very similar to Excel, okay? I'm going to use Google Sheets because it's in the file that's already up on Blackboard, and I'm kind of layering in this video into that file. But the text wrapping, the column width options is also within Excel. So let me text wrap, and actually here I'll do this. If you notice, text wrap, it kind of just wraps it, okay? It kind of makes it so that it all fits within the cell. And you know what? Because this is just what I'm used to, I'm also going to shade it, and I'm also going to center it. You don't have to do this on your end, by the way. This is just me. I've had these habits that I can't change. I'm used to doing this every time I use Excel. I really care about presentation, so I try and present it as I'm going. Okay. I now computed the change between scenario A and base case. I did D10 minus C10. If you're still getting used to these cell references, like finding where's D10, where's C10, take your time, pause the video, okay? I'm moving quickly because I'm used to it, and I have to be honest, in some ways I don't realize how quickly I'm moving, and that's why it's helpful for you guys to kind of tell me to slow down sometimes, and which I give you credit for doing that. Now I'm going to compute the change in taxable income, which I already know because the problem told me consider if his income is increased by 40,000. But I'm going to compute it here, and I can do the same formula, and it flushes out that 40,000. Now I want to see the marginal tax rate on the 40,000 of additional income. of income, okay? Well, I know that the formula here is telling me the change in tax divided by the change in taxable income. So A divided by B. So I'm going to say C equals A divided by B as just sort of a marker. And I'm going to do equals 389 divided by 40,000. That gives me 0.234725. Well, I don't like looking at 6 decimal points. I want to see a percentage. So again, I'm going to come up here and I'm just going to format. I'm going to click on the percentage. And that's my answer. Okay, it's the same answer that I got over here on the whiteboard. So what I've done here, the value of Excel, and this is, I want to encourage you guys to do what I just did on the screen here. If you can work to this point, that's excellent. It requires that you input into Excel. It requires that you input the numbers and then do some basic calculations. The other thing that I'm doing here, and I want to name it because I don't think it's necessarily obvious, is I'm laying the data out in a tabular format that sort of will be readable if I were to come back in a month from now and look at this. When we create data in Excel, all right, when we lay data out, we want it to be in a format where we have a columnar information and then row information. So if you notice, I've got tax and taxable income written only once, okay? We have applied these two terms to two different scenarios, but I only have them written once. And the way that I can accomplish that, and by the way, having them written only once just minimizes the amount of text on the screen. Having them written only once allows me to kind of lay out my logic from the base case, and then from left to right, we look at scenario A. And then we can look at the change. So it's kind of like a logical sort of sequencing of the data. And then I can compute my marginal tax rate down below. I will admit, what I showed you earlier in class was complicated, and that was really, I was layering in some additional modeling concepts. And maybe what we can do is, as we get further into the course, and as you guys learn more about Excel and learn how to format, I'd invite you to go, maybe we can go back to this exercise, and I'd be curious if, you know, that initial worksheet that we looked at today looks a little bit easier and is a little bit more, you know, more manageable for you to kind of work with. And I say this particularly for those of you who are newer to Excel. You will get there, I promise. We'll stage it at a rate and a pace that kind of makes sense for each of you. Okay? See if you can get to this point with Excel. If you can, that's excellent. If you can't, don't worry about it for now. The key is, though, follow the logic on the whiteboard that I walked through. Okay? Make sure you have that down. And then you can kind of, in addition, start to work on these Excel skills or Google Sheet skills. I should say spreadsheet skills. When I say Google and Excel, I'm speaking interchangeably. Okay? I will do a quick video on part B, and we'll kind of repeat what we did for part A if you're interested in looking at that as well. Thanks.